Hello and welcome to our last section of our journey to 1500 ELO on chess.com. This isn't going to be a game, but it's going to be a quick review of our stats throughout our journey to kind of prepare ourselves for the following journey and see where we are currently at up till this point. So let's just jump on ahead here into our chess.com insights. And first of all, I think I'll make my camera a bit smaller. So I'll just be doing some quick on-the-fly surgery here, and I think this should work better. There we go. So now you can see the stats, and my face won't be in front of it. So thus far, we've played 130 games, according to the stats here. Might be missing out on one game there, don't quite know why it says 130 and not 141. Might have gotten the range incorrectly, or it might not quite include our previous game, which I played today. Because I'm stocking up here on a couple of videos, because I'll be away for a couple of days in the coming week. In fact, the day this video is coming out, which is going to be Wednesday, I'm going to be away for a tech festival in eastern Norway, where people from my study were invited by a company. So that's going to be a lot of fun, but well, let's come back to what we're looking at here, which is our stats. First of all, our overall win rate here sits at 54.3% and 40% losses, which looks like a pretty decent win rate to me. I'm expecting at some point this is going to get much closer to 50% as we make our way through the following journey, namely our journey to 2000 ELO on chess.com. If we come down a bit, our average accuracy here, I'm really happy to see the accuracy when we win has been quite high. It's typically been in positional games, etc., and also some non-positional games, but typically speaking, when the games are pretty wild, we have lost a lot of them, which you can see from the accuracy as well. But of course, if we are to lose, we are going to make mistakes, and the accuracy simply is not going to be that high either way. Still, I think those numbers here are pretty decent, and I definitely don't mind them. And of course, accuracy is not everything. It's going to depend on how the game plays out, but it's a good starting point. So we started off well here, and it's been going up and down as is to be expected. We all have our ups and downs. This probably even shows us when and how we had some losing streaks along the journey, and when we had periods of, it might even be good sleep or little stress in my everyday life, etc., or it might just be a decent streak in general. We had a little slump here back in September, which I can remember, got a bit inaccurate for a little while, and then we went back up to a pretty decent accuracy. I can't remember if this might have been our 6-game losing streak or not, which we had not too long ago, or it might have been around here. Either way, we made our way back up here, and well, that's about it there. So how about we come down and check here at our accuracy by move order stat. Unsurprisingly here, our accuracies are pretty high when it comes to the first few moves of a game, but then they do come down a bit, and typically speaking, if I can remember correctly, this middle game phase tends to be our least accurate phase, after which, once we get to the end game, we tend to have a bit more accurate gameplay. How about compared to similar players? I guess that would be players of similar ratings to us. It seems we're pretty much ahead by about 8 to 10%, a lot of the way, and towards the end there, not quite as much, I think, or maybe even more at some points. At least it's nice to see we're slightly ahead of the curve as of now, but I think that's going to even out as we climb up the rating ladder. This isn't quite representative of the truth here, as well, it does seem like we're just winning all our games, but this has been in the end, and I think if I do remember correctly, a couple of those games here have been. Oh no, they're not from actually. I should just eating my words here. Those games are not, in fact, from non-journey games because I did restrict the calendar here to only include our games from the journey. So we have in fact not lost a single game against an opponent rated lower than 1300. Then we started losing quite a lot of games, and currently, as of now, this I think is what we're going to have to work on. Getting those stats against 1500 and 1600 rated opponents and pushing them down so the green portion is bigger. That's going to have to be something we work on as we try and make our way up beyond 1500. I do remember last time we went and looked at this, those were completely red, if I do not remember incorrectly. And since then, we've started winning a few games against 1500 opponents, which has been a pretty decent motivation. And as for the games we won, mostly by resignations, a few abandonment games, a few timeouts, and a few checkmates. Typically, when we draw a game, it's by insufficient material, but we have had repetitions and a stalemate as well, it appears. Typically, we lose by resignation or checkmate. I would have thought we had more timeouts, but apparently it's only been 10 times. Although 10 times over the course of 140 games is still a bit too high. This, I think, is difficult to get a complete grasp of what is meant by the different types of games, like sudden games or intense games, but they are represented by a graph. For example, the sudden graph seems to indicate a game was pretty even until it suddenly dipped off, as can be shown from the line inside of here. So we've had a pretty decent balance, apart from, funnily enough, balanced games and smooth games. And a few sharp games as well, apparently. This isn't going to be all that representative because we have 3 smooth games, but what I think we can have a look at here is our giveaway games, our sudden games, and our intense games, which will be those here, for example. Giveaway games are games where it appears, I think, a game was going okay until a sudden blunder. And so I think, oh yeah, I see the difference here, because giveaway comes from the top and sudden comes from the middle. So sudden game means it was close and then we blundered. Giveaway means we blundered away a one game from a decisively winning position to a lost position, and that's been going against us. We've apparently blundered away more winning games than our opponents have. As for the sudden games, we've had a bit more luck with those. We've had more equal games played accurately until our opponents have made a blunder. Intense games seem to be represented by ups and downs, but not as much as wild games, and here we've been doing pretty okay. Wild games, about 50-50, but I think at this point the stats get so low, we don't really have a whole lot to look at. Let's go down and have a look here, and once again, this isn't going to be all that representative because this, I think, was just one game. But if we have a look at the games we did have some decent stats in, those were the giveaway games, which were our worst games by far, I think, at least from those we had played a lot of games in. In those games, we had a sub 80 accuracy. Sub 80 accuracy, not the best, but I could have thought it was worse still, so it's not all that bad. And those here represent our better game types, at least according to this classification. Here you can see we didn't really have a whole lot of games in the opening or ending in the opening. And surprisingly, most of our games end in the end game, where we tend to reign superior in the end. If we lose, I think it's typically in the middle game. Games that ended here. And this is us compared to others. Most people, or above half of the games typically, at our ELO range seem to end in the middle game, but we appear to drag them out into the end game, and I think that's been to our advantage. As you can see here, we don't really love the middle game as much as we'll do the end game and the opening, where our accuracies tend to be a whole lot higher. Still, we have a slightly higher accuracy than average for the middle games compared to people of our rating, but it's not by a massive margin, and this basically means I think we should be improving the middle game, which oftentimes tends to be tactical. So it might be a good thing if I get time to play a few puzzles a day once again, which I did for a while back this summer. Results. Yeah, here we go. This is us. This graph is not representative though, it's 2 games. And we won those, but this is essentially not a whole lot. But how about the middle game? We've got worse stats in the middle game compared to people of similar ratings, which is not ideal. But this, of course, is our point, which is the weakest as of now. In the end games, though, we appear to be doing a whole lot better. We've got a 56% win rate against 47, so we are up 9% compared to others of our rating range. Performance. Yeah, this is by opening. The Queen's Gambit still going good for us. This is sorted by total games, so this is going to be sorting our most played openings first. The Queen's Gambit goes well. Queen's Pawn opening, those d4 openings are doing us a massive favor. The Slav defense as well, pretty good. Still, the Indian games don't typically tend to favor us. There's 7 games in the King's Indian and 2 games in the Old Indian defense. Not ideal, but the Nimzo Indian hasn't been that bad for us just yet. How about our black openings? In the Sicilian, I thought our stats here would be worse, but they are quite positive, which I definitely don't mind. For the Alpin, 66% win rate seems pretty decent. And the Queen's Gambit has been going well for us as well. We've been playing a few games against other openings, but those stats are pretty insignificant because they aren't all that large in terms of sample size just yet. As for mastery, this is average book moves. This is sorted by color, so let's have a look at our white openings first. In which case, the Queen's Pawn opening tends to be the one we're doing worst in by a massive margin. 73% of the time there, we leave the opening first. It's not a big sample size, but it's still indicative that we should be looking at some d4 opening stuff. Otherwise, I think this is pretty okay, but ideally the numbers would be as low as possible to 0. 0 would be ideal, and we would always know the theory better than our opponent, but that's not always going to be the case. How about here? First of all, 4.6 for black, 4.3 for white, so it appears we have a bit better theory for black, which is reflected through this number for our most played opening by far as black, which is the Sicilian. 4.5 moves on average, and the Alpin we play 6 moves on average before leaving the opening theory. So the numbers for black are pretty optimistic for us, so I definitely don't mind those stats, but the Sicilian might as well be carried to a certain degree by some Najdorf openings, which typically tend to be 5 free moves until we get to the position there. As for tactics, this could get interesting if we have a look at our performance here. We've missed 1 fork on pawns, 2 knight forks, but if we compare ourselves to similar players, then we are still pretty much in the green. At least thus far, but of course if this is shifted by 1 in either direction, the stacks aren't that comprehensive yet, so it could shift pretty quickly. I see for the pawns though, we are about equal. Pins. We're finding a whole lot of bishop pins, missed 1, same with rooks, and the queens, we've missed 2 pins. How about a comparison? A comparison seems to show we're in the green for bishops and rooks, but not quite for queens. As for mates, we haven't really had a whole lot of mates here, it seems, but somehow we've found a mate in 5, which I can't remember when that was, but that's pretty nice. How about a comparison? That's a 0% for others, or is it? Yeah, apparently it is. It might just be a bit mistaken because of the sample size here, which doesn't really tell us a whole lot. Still slightly in the green here, which is decent. Hanging pieces. I don't quite know how this is calculated. We've hung 23 pawns, it seems, 6 knights, 6 bishops, and 6 rooks, but I don't quite know what the following numbers are here. Afterwards, is it the fraction of pieces we've hung of that type relative to all of the pieces we've hung? Might be, seems to maybe add up, yeah. An interesting stat. How about our free pieces? This is free real estate here. We've had a whole lot of stuff given to us. Missed a lot of it though, but we have spotted a whole lot as well. How about a comparison? And we are still in the green, at least thus far. This is going to be interesting. This shows our breakdown of percentages of different move types. It's pretty top heavy here, not a whole lot of brilliant moves, but that's not surprising, as typically we tend to play openings or games which aren't as tactical to the point of frequent brilliant moves being played. Would like to get those numbers at the bottom here down even further, but there are no double-digit numbers here at least, which at least is positive to see. How about sorting by piece color first, actually? Yeah, sorting by piece color, and here we go. Yeah, most of our brilliant moves have been as black rather, because there we play the Sicilian as opposed to Queen's Gambit-ish type of games. Unsurprisingly, the Sicilian tends to produce more brilliant moves. And as for this is quite similar all the way down. Pretty similar, but how about a comparison relative to others? Pretty equal in terms of brilliant moves, slightly better at the top here, 3.5% more best moves, 1.6 here and 0.7. The book moves seem to be fewer, but I think that's because our games go on longer into the end game. Inaccuracies, mistakes and blunders all lower, and missed wins about equal, so we are a bit more top heavy here, which is quite optimistic. So what does this graph show? Move quality over time. Is this by move, or no, it's by date here? So how do we go about this? It seems, typically speaking, we've been pretty consistent, but about this point in August, late August, we had a lot more blunders relative to other times. You can see up till this point where the white or where the yellows goes up to, that's going to be our fraction of bad moves, which will be represented by blunders, mistakes, and inaccuracies. And at this point, 1st of July, we had a whole lot of those. This also was the case at the end of August. Otherwise, it's been quite consistent and going up and down a bit, but not a whole lot. As for moves per piece, this is, I don't quite know how significant this stat is, but it could be funny seeing how we compare to others. Pawn moves about equal, knights as well, and bishops. We seem to move the rooks a bit more than others at our ELO range, and the queen is moved a bit less. As for the king, 15% for us, 13% for others, but I think that's going to be because of us playing endgames more often, where we tend to move the king a whole lot more. Average accuracy by piece, 4% higher for pawns, a bit higher for knights as well, bishops, rooks, queens, and the king accuracy is about equal. As for castling, how is the breakdown here? No number is incredibly small, but the no castle games sample size is only 26 still. We seem to be quite equal here, or even in terms of win rates across the different game phases in terms of when we castle. It only really changes by about 1% it seems, which is honestly a bit surprising. As for the calendar, and this is funny, I remember this from last time we did some insight analysis. I am not a morning person, which can be reflected here quite well. This is quite funny. All the other times of the day, we are above 80%, but the mornings are the black sheep of the day family, I was going to say. Either way, I should not be playing games in the morning, that's for sure. Results by time of day. Those are really only 2 games, so the sample size there is quite small, but it doesn't surprise me still, as I know myself to be not much of a morning person. But still, if this was the sample size was bigger, it could have been at least somewhat different. Otherwise, it seems to be pretty okay. Most of our games happen in the afternoon or the evening. And we've had a couple of night games as well, but not a whole lot. As for our weekdays or days of the week, this is something I remember from last time. Tuesdays are still our best days. Isn't our highest accuracy though? That's Sunday. Mondays, you all know how Mondays are. Let's not talk about Mondays. Otherwise, we're pretty equal here, or it's pretty even throughout the rest of the week. As for the geography, we've been playing a whole lot of opponents from the entire world. Would be funny and interesting to see this map get filled out as we go. I think our last opponent was from Yemen, which should be about here, I think. There we go. I'm not horrible when it comes to geography, I swear. It's just I have horrendously bad visual memory, so I do not quite remember the flags. Well, anyways, I think that's about it for today's video. Just wanted to kind of have some closure in terms of closure seems to be the incorrect word here. What I mean at least is at least wanted to kind of round off this journey to 1500 with a quick review of our stats prior to our journey to 2000 starting up in 2 days' time. So well then, this has been our video for today, guys. Hope you liked it. Would like some feedback to see if this was interesting or not. It's not. I don't think it's going to bring a big audience relative to the gameplay videos, but it might still be interesting for some of you guys who are committed to this journey. Anyways, hope you guys have a fantastic rest of your day, and well, feel free to look forwards, or I at least am looking forward to the video that's going to come out tomorrow, which is going to be the tournament I played on chess.com, which was a tiny, small little tournament, but it was still a fun experience. So well, that's about it. Thanks, guys. See you tomorrow. Bye bye.